Sacker. Imran Khan won power in Pakistan 2 years ago with a promise to root out corruption and take on the country's vested interests. So how's it going? Well, rising food prices and the COVID pandemic have left many Pakistanis feeling worse off, while the anti-corruption drive has become a political battleground. My guest today, Ishaq Dar, was Pakistan's finance minister, a key lieutenant of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Now, both of those men are trying to rally opposition to Imran Khan. But how much credibility do they have? Ishaq Dar, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let us begin with your personal status, your legal status.
Sure.
You are a wanted man in Pakistan. Are you here in London to escape the judicial process?
Well, not really. I think you must be aware of the Pakistan history, that whenever in Pakistan over a period of 73 years, the corruption rhetoric has been used in the last few dictatorships, and the current one isn't different, because this regime is known to be under a covert coup or a judicial martial law. So I can prove that there is nothing against me, and I have all the evidence. I hope that you know that the prime allegation against me, my name was not in Panama paper. My name was not in the 20th of April.
Let me stop you, because some people will not be following this in great detail.
Sure.
You're saying your name was not in the Panama Papers. Nonetheless,
Sure.
we learned an awful lot from those Panama Papers published in 2016 about
Sure.
monies being stashed away in foreign bank accounts, and it involves some top-level Pakistanis, and there was reason to believe that not just Nawaz Sharif's family was involved, but your family too.
No, there isn't any mention of my family
I'm
at
not
all.
saying there was a specific mention of your family, but the National Accountability Bureau decided after the publication of the Panama Papers to look very closely at yours and your family's interests, assets and accounts.
Most welcome.
And they found that there were grave problems with your accounts.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because you see, I'm sure that you would be privy that it was the Supreme Court direction which set up a joint investigation team, which is extrajudicial activity which Supreme Court decided. And there were two military intelligence members who were virtually governing out of the 6 members of the JIT. So you see, there is a background.
Well, I'm actually interested in what's known in Pakistan as the National Accountability Bureau, which is the main agency of anti-corruption.
Yeah,
and they look very carefully at you and your family's interests, as you well know. And in September 2017, they concluded that you and your family owned assets, quote, beyond your known sources of income. They said quite specifically the accused, that is you, has acquired assets and pecuniary interests, resources in his own name and the name of dependents, totaling roughly $6 million US, more than 830 million Pakistani rupees. Now, is it your contention that the National Accountability Bureau has no integrity?
It has lost its integrity long time back. It is an institution which is used against political opponents.
But you didn't say that with respect, sir, when you were a very senior serving government minister.
No, I did. I held press conference. And I explained, by the way, this number is as per my tax return. I never missed. You see, the prime allegation against me, which was in the JIT report, on the basis of which Supreme Court directed NAB to file a reference, was that I did not file 20 years tax returns in Pakistan. 1981 to 2001. A UK qualified chartered accountant, never missed reporting his tax matters in UK when he was here, till 1976. And then in the North America, 2 years, and in Pakistan since 70, I never missed any tax return. So this is such a blatant allegation.
Is it? Well, in that case, let's be very open and transparent with each other. I've interviewed many government officials and ministers around the world over many years, and they always say, oh, I'm not responsible for any corruption at all, and I believe in transparency.
I do.
You do?
Oh,
so
yes,
how many properties do you and your family own?
It's all declared in my tax returns.
Well, just give me the answer, because I don't know. How many properties do you and your family own?
I have my main residence in Pakistan, which has been taken over by by this regime. So I haven't got too many properties. But
how many properties do you and your family own?
My net worth is what has been reported.
How many properties do you and your family own?
One.
One
sole
property. You and your family own one property.
My sole residence.
So all of these stories in the Pakistani press about multiple properties owned by your family inside Pakistan, property interests overseas, including in Dubai, and we're sitting in London. We're sitting in London. You own nothing in London?
No.
Your family, not just you, your family.
No, not at all.
Own nothing?
No, because
and Dubai?
The government.
Dubai?
My sons have just one villa, which is owned by them. They're in business for the last 17 years.
So when I asked you how many properties you and your family own, and you said one, that wasn't strictly true.
No, it is strictly true, because they're adult, they're married, they're 17 years, they're in business, so they're independent of me.
You know very well that when the NAB looked at your assets, they were looking at you and your family.
I have no issue. My family, everything is accounted for. That's exactly... You see,
if all of this is so clear-cut, you only own one property in the entire world, your tax records have been kept and given to the authorities over the last 20 years, if everything is so crystal clear, why do you not go to Pakistan and make this case in a court of law?
Well, the court of law, my lawyers were there. I'm here for medical treatment. I have a cervical issue.
You've been here for what, best part of 3 years on this medical issue?
Almost, yes, I am.
Are you still really suffering?
Yes, I am.
And you couldn't possibly get back to Pakistan?
Well, let's see what's happening in Pakistan. Where are the human rights? What's happening in NAB custody? Where people have dozens of people have been killed virtually.
But sorry, you're saying that people being investigated by the NAB, the National Accountability Bureau, have been killed?
In the NAB custody, many people have died. Yes, it's an open secret. You Google and you would have all the detail. I can leave detail with you if you want to. You see, this institution has been politically used against opponents. As I said, that I never missed a return. The premise of the entire thing, and whatever they say, my net worth is already, if it is documented in my tax return, and my tax return is not missing, so it is totally accounted for. So what is the issue? The issue is something different. Because Mr. Sharif was fighting for the civil supremacy, and I have always been fighting for the financial and fiscal discipline and transparency.
Right, so you introduced the name Mr. Sharif, so I think we need to talk about Mr. Sharif as well as yourself, because Nawaz Sharif is also in London, also on medical grounds. He,
manhandled by the NAB, in his custody.
Manhandled, you say. Yeah. The truth is, Nawaz Sharif is a convicted criminal.
Well, I hope you know that both cases in which he has been convicted, in both judgments, it has been written that the prosecution has not been able to prove any corruption, any kickback, any loss to the exchequer. So what else we want?
I'm sorry, sir, but it is quite clear that he is a convicted criminal. And again, the Accountability Court, which works alongside the National Accountability Bureau, found against Mr. Sharif. I believe he was given a 10-year sentence, and it was reduced ultimately to 7 years. He was then allowed to come to London on medical grounds, the same medical grounds that brought you to London too. So here the two of you sit, and now you and he, you of course used to be his finance minister in the Pakistan government, you and he put yourselves forward as leading voices in the opposition in Pakistan, demanding early elections and an end to Imran Khan's government. And I ask you, what credibility do you think you have with the Pakistani people?
I think what credibility Imran Khan government has. The world has witnessed that it was a stolen election. It was a rigged election. It's not we are saying. We have experienced. All pre-poll 2018 surveys indicate the PMLN will win. But the observers, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, the dirtiest election everybody knows the election has been stolen from us. So I think we have every
with respect,
right.
I just look back at the EU Monitor's report on that election. They reported some grave concerns about abuses in specific places, not involving just one party, but several different parties. But the final and ultimate conclusion was that they believed the result was credible, that Imran Khan's election victory in 2018 was credible. That was the conclusion of the EU report.
Then you haven't read all the reports. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan.
You can cherry pick the most negative. I'm telling you that the EU monitors, highly respected, independent monitors, looked at everything that happened in Pakistan, and they concluded that Imran Khan's victory was credible.
No, Free and Fair Election Network, which is the global one. Do we have any question on their integrity? What do they report?
I don't believe that there's ever been an election in Pakistan without some abuses, where every single thing was conducted with freedom and integrity. That doesn't work in Pakistan. The truth is, Imran Khan has a democratic mandate. He's been in power for 2 years, and you are now saying to the Pakistani people he must be removed from office.
Mr. Sarkar, this election has been stolen. It was a rigged election. There was a pre-poll rigging. Electables from our party were pushed to his party using the NAB. During the day, the results transmission system was choked off and was put off of hours. Our polling agents were expelled from the poll. Fafin has reported 35 seats were rigged and stolen. Otherwise, he would have never been in government.
Well, your party chooses to say that. I would simply come back to Michael Gala, the chief of the EU monitoring team, who said overall
I think you have to
this
read the whole
election result is credible.
Well, this. You haven't read the whole report. Let's go to the whole report of EU chief. Please go through what did he say before this last sentence.
Well, of course, his conclusion is the most important thing. I think you'd agree. Maybe you wouldn't. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about what your tactics are now. Because as I've said, you and Nawaz Sharif are sending your video links back into Pakistan, sometimes to thousands of people, demanding an early end to the Imran Khan government. And this is what, just a month ago, Nawaz Sharif said to thousands of people in Punjab. He said that the integrity of the army chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, had disappeared. He said that the general was responsible for levering him out of office and rigging 2018, as you've said. Quote, this is what Nawaz Sharif said. You, directly to the general, the chief of the army, he said, you packed up our government and you put the nation at the altar of your own wishes. You rejected the people's choice in elections and installed an inefficient, incapable group, leading to economic catastrophe. What an extraordinary thing to say of your country's chief of army.
It's a reality. The buck stops at the top. And the deep state is known what deep state does in Pakistan. Is it a surprise to you, Mr. Sekhar? It is known to the world. Hillary Clinton the other day just gave an interview. And she said, what is deep state? Quoting Pakistan as an example. So please, we must be fair to analyze things. The election was stolen. It started off from Dawn leaks. Mr. Sharif has been struggling for the supremacy of democracy, for the supremacy of parliament, and I have been struggling for the fiscal and discipline and the transparency. Is it wrong? UK has been upholding the democracy and the democratic values. We would think that you would be supporting us.
So let us be clear. You are saying that the Pakistani military, the army in particular, are subverting all democratic processes in your country. Is that what you're saying?
This is the global reports. It's not...
No, I want to be clear what you're saying. Because the Pakistani people will be listening to this interview, and you are condemning the military of your own country as subverting your democracy.
It's not the military. I think we have to talk about the individuals. It's not all the entire institution. I think let's create a difference. Is the wish list, is the plan of certain people who enforce in Pakistan martial law.
So you're saying the army is led by General Bajwa, who in yours and Nawaz Sharif's opinion is entirely subverting democracy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think
I want to be clear.
Let's re-articulate. What we are saying, that if the elections were rigged, it is now established without any ray of doubt. So if the elections were rigged and somebody has been planned, it's not we, it is the Interior Minister of Pakistan gave a statement that if Mr. Sharif had not got problem with the deep state and the institutions, he would have been fourth-time Prime Minister. Why would he say it?
So let me be clear. You're now alleging that this is entirely unacceptable when your erstwhile boss and your very close ally, Nawaz Sharif, was working hand in glove with Pakistan's military dictator, General Zia, for many years. And suddenly he's decided that the military and the way they interfere in politics in Pakistan is entirely unacceptable. What kind of hypocrisy is that?
No, I disbelieve this analysis. Frankly speaking, I disagree with you.
Well, what bit of what I've just said is
maybe
wrong?
Evolution process. Maybe evolution process.
Evolution process?
Yeah, because you
mean because then he was in power and now he's out of power, so he's really angry with the army because they won't work with him.
No, it's not the first time. It's the third time he was Prime Minister. And Imran Khan, own Interior Minister, tells the whole world that Mr. Sharif would have been fourth-time Prime Minister if he had not got trouble with the establishment.
You see, Imran Khan may be unpopular in Pakistan now, but when he heard what Nawaz Sharif said last month at that rally, when he directly targeted the Chief of Army, Imran Khan said this. He said, how dare Nawaz Sharif point to the general and blame him for what is happening in Pakistan when for years Mr. Nawaz Sharif polished the boots of a former military dictator. When Imran Khan said that, I dare say he actually had a great deal of sympathy from many Pakistanis who know hypocrisy when they see it.
I think you probably haven't seen his 21 clips, how he has been maligning the military army chief, the intelligence services of Pakistan, and not too long before, it's just last year when he was in the United States, he gave a statement that it is the ISI, our intelligence service, which actually was responsible for the Osama bin Laden and its killing, etc., etc. So I think when he was out of power, when he was in opposition, he had given 21 different statements at different times. He was known as Taliban Khan. I mean, I don't know. Are we talking or wish to discuss his performance and our performance? Are we here to talk whether it is a pure democracy or is it an anocracy?
You and other opposition elements have created this Pakistan democratic movement. You want to deliver early elections and see Imran booted out of power, but many people, even in your own movement, are now backing away from this targeting of the Pakistani military. For example, Bilawal Bhutto said it was regrettable that Nawaz Sharif had named the military chief by name, and even Mr. Sharif's own daughter, Mariam, had to stress at great length that she was not anti-military. It sounds like Nawaz Sharif has overstepped the mark.
I think there seems to be a confusion. Mr. Nawaz Sharif, as Prime Minister or otherwise, is not anti-military. Please, let's be very clear. He blames certain individuals, and as I said, the buck, stops at the top. If the Dawn leaks were there, there's a huge, history about that. I'm sure you will be privy to Dawn leaks. It relates to FATF. It relates to Pakistan going back to grey, which we brought out from grey and it was white. So I think, if Mr. Sharif talks of certain interventions which are against the oath, against the Constitution of Pakistan, is something wrong?
Let's talk about politics and your message to your own people. We know that Pakistani people are suffering right now. Food price inflation is soaring. COVID-19 is seeing a second surge in your country, creating real economic difficulties. There's going to be barely any growth in the Pakistan economy this year. In the midst of all of that, you are creating a new level of political instability, demanding that Imran call early elections, calling him illegitimate, banging on about the vote rigging, claiming that the army is really in power. Do you think that your approach is really helping the interests of the Pakistani people?
I think you have to be neutral umpire, Mr. Sekar, for a moment. 2014, we won the election 2013, massive majority, 2/3 almost. 2014, when Mr. Imran Khan comes to agitate for 4 constituencies rigged only, his claim, nobody spoke.
Yeah, Mr. Dar, you're going back now. You're going back 6 years. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of a Pakistani today who sees rising food prices, political instability, geopolitical instability, and he wonders whether the opposition sitting in London, yourself and Mr. Nawaz Sharif, really have the interests of ordinary Pakistani people at heart.
We have interests of Pakistani people at heart, and that's why we are moving. This country had witnessed double revenue collection, in our tenure of 5 years, lowest inflation, lowest interest rates, best performing stock market in the South Asia, most stable currency, highest GDP growth in 11 years, 5.8%. I mean, it's all music. Your Western, the institutions had all the praise. And what was the final report in 2016? PricewaterhouseCoopers, what did it say? Pakistan is going to join G20 by 2030. And we were striving to bring it even earlier. And we were very clearly hoping that since we had ended the load shedding, we had fought the extremism and terrorism in Pakistan, we had improved the macroeconomic, indicators in Pakistan, and all praises, all. So now,
I understand. I'm not suggesting that your personal economic record was bad. In some ways, it was good. But listen, I'm just trying to get you to respond to a simple question. Pakistan is where it is today. Hang on. Okay. Imran Khan has a 5-year mandate. He won the election. Now you have a choice. You have a choice. You can wait to fight the next election if you choose to go home, frankly, but at the moment you're still in London. You can either fight at the ballot box during the next election, or you can try to undermine Imran Khan and his government from the sidelines, from here in London, and thereby create new economic and political instability. Is that the choice you've made?
No, it's not a matter of political instability. It's a matter of incompetence. It's a matter of non-performance. It's a matter of ruining and, grounding the economy of Pakistan in 2 years before Corona. Mind you, after 1952, Pakistan first time had seen negative GDP growth. After 1952, from 5.8%. First year 1.9%, this year 0.4% negative. And there's a massive unemployment. We pulled 6% people out of poverty. He has pushed back 6% people in the poverty line. He promised to give 10 million jobs. He has made people unemployed, 12 million added to the unemployment numbers.
Pakistan's in big trouble. I just wonder whether your approach is weakening Pakistan on the world stage. You recently tweeted, hang on, you recently tweeted a message saying that Imran Khan, and I'm going to quote your words, personified fascism. Now, Imran Khan has stood up for Pakistan's interests in a very tough stand against India and Mr. Modi, which you well know. He has also conducted a foreign policy which sees deepening economic ties with China, which is precisely the same policy that you followed. He also is trying to use Pakistan's influence, it seems, to bring the Taliban to the peace table in Afghanistan. What is it about these policies that you think personifies fascism?
Well, I think that perhaps you haven't studied or you haven't had the time to look into what fascism he's doing.
You stand by that?
Yeah, of course I do. I do. There is a fascist government in Pakistan as of now.
You're trying to mobilize tens of thousands of people on the streets in different Pakistani cities, even when there's a COVID pandemic. Your message is that we must bring Imran Khan's government down by the middle of the year and have new elections. You haven't succeeded so far. What's your next move?
Well, Mr. Sekhar, I think you haven't seen Mr. Imran Khan during the same... You see, the PDM gatherings started from 16th of October. You haven't seen...
the Democratic Movement gatherings, yes.
But you haven't seen in the same period, in the last 6 weeks, you haven't seen the gatherings, the large gatherings of Mr. Imran Khan himself.
COVID would not spread. What is your next move?
Well, our ultimate aim and our ultimate goal is supremacy of, democracy in Pakistan, the free and fair election, which would be transparent and should be acceptable to the world observers.
And presumably the rule of law.
And the rule of law.
So will you go home to face the rule of law?
Of course I will. Rule of law and transparency. And, the constitution has to be, all institution has to work within the domain which has been prescribed in the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan. I think we'll be very happy. So right now, when I tweeted, I have no regret, and it is the ground reality. I mean, I can give you, a prime minister who calls the Director General of the Federal Investigation Agency and gives them names and says, go and arrest them. I mean, what sort of, governance this is?
Well, we have to end it there, but I do thank you very much indeed for coming into the Hard Talk studio.
It's a pleasure.
Ishaq Dar, thanks very much.
It's a pleasure. Many thanks.